Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the 30th episode of Continuously Refined. I'm Shayna.
And I'm Sicily. That's really crazy.
30 episodes. So what we're talking about today is very near and dear to my heart, and I know Cicely as well. We are talking all things period health, what a healthy period looks like, what you are deficient in if you have a very painful period, a very long period, a very short period, and overall, your period and even your cycle is such an indicator of your overall women's health. So
hmm
it can tell us so much about our bodies, what we're deficient in, what we need more of. And something that I really struggled with for so long, and what is such a testament in my story, is not having a period. For over 2 years, I didn't have one. That's an issue. That's telling you something about your body. And what I did to get my period back was not turn to the conventional birth control way that the doctors were pushing me so hard, but I spent the time, I put in the work, I ate a certain way, I exercised, I changed my products, and I got my period back on a full 28-day cycle every single month. And so I am a testament that it is possible and it can happen. And I know Cicely has also experienced very similar things in her story. So we just want to focus in this episode on the specifics and the science, backed by science, on what a normal period looks like and what you can add into your life to have a normal regular cycle.
Yeah, we definitely both have experienced going to the doctor and being prescribed birth control to solve all of our issues. And that we went different routes, and that wasn't the case, and that wasn't the only thing. And so we just kind of want to continue to bring awareness, and we have in other episodes too, but to the fact that birth control is not the only option. And even through conversations with friends and just other people, I've realized that like so many girls think that their 3 day period with super light bleeding is normal. And I hear so often, like, oh, I'm so lucky. Like, I only get my period for 3 days and it's so light and it's not painful at all. And like, you don't want your period to be super painful or like extremely heavy bleeding, because that's the other side of it. Then you have those that struggle with the 7 day, over 7 day periods that are super long, that are super painful, where they're staying home from school, staying home from work, and they'll go to the doctor and just be like, I just need to get on birth control because I need the quick fix, I need the solve. But there are definitely other ways to do that, and we really want to encourage you guys not to do this quick fix. I will say that I want to start off with kind of a disclaimer of like, we are not wanting to shame anyone on birth control. Everyone goes on birth control for different reasons, and I do understand that. We just want people to be aware that there are other options, and we do want to share a little bit about what birth control can do to you, because there are negative sides to taking that as well.
100%. Speaking from experience, I was on it for at two different times, probably a total of like three some years, and it wrecked me. I mean, absolutely wrecked me. Yeah, I was having a quote unquote normal period every 28 days, but it wrecked me. And with birth control, you're not having a cycle. Your hormones aren't fully fluctuating. You're not ovulating. That's not a cycle. So the typical cycle, normal period cycle, is 21 to 35 days. So from the first day you get your period, that's day one. Around 21 to 35 days, that's a pretty big range. The average person is a 28-day cycle. And your bleeding should last in that 3 to 7 day range. Like Cicely said, it is not normal to have a super light period that's 2 days. That is not normal. It's also not normal to have a 7 to 8 day really, really heavy period. Not normal. Those are things that need to be, oh, like you need to be aware of, you need to focus on, and then go make a fix. So, kind of hard to tell, but like specific bleeding and your blood loss should average about 30 to 80 milliliters per cycle. So that's 2 to 6 tablespoons. It's nothing crazy, but it's flowing. With that flow characteristic, the color should be bright red to dark red. You don't want brown or like this. I don't even like red. Red's hard to explain. Like you don't want it to be brown, but you don't want it to be like pinkish. So there is certain,
Yeah.
you can look online. It's disgusting, but go look on like the colors that your period blood should be. And it's okay to pass occasional small clots, but they should be less than a quarter size. If you are seeing clots that are bigger than a quarter, huge signal something is not okay.
Yeah. I would also say, so then you get your symptoms around your period. And this was something I really struggled with when I was I wasn't getting my period regular to start, so that was an issue. And then on top of that, I was the person that was like homesick from school when I would have my period because I was in so much pain. I couldn't leave my bed, heating pad on 24/7. And since going the holistic route, that is not the case. Even when I do get my period now, I do not feel that way at all. I can go about, live my normal life. So you should only experience mild cramping. That is normal. That is a sign. It makes sense because of the work your body is trying to do. You might be a little bit more tired. You might feel breast tenderness. Mood changes are definitely common. PMS will likely happen before your period, but you shouldn't be overly irritable or angry if you find yourself being like kind of like super irritable or nasty towards people around you. That might be a sign of something being off as well. Your pain should definitely be manageable. We know that with our periods, we need to rest more, we need to hydrate more. There's even certain foods we can be eating that are going to help these things. You can take Advil or things, which obviously we don't always recommend taking over-the-counter medications like that.
Nope.
Because there's holistic ways to do it, as we'll say a million times. But when you have the severe cramps or nausea or symptoms that are disrupting your daily life, that could be a signal even into PCOS, which we've done a couple episodes on and we've talked a lot about, or endometriosis and different things like that.
Your period should be consistent. You should have it once a month. And if it's not, that's a red flag. And something that we both experienced is it takes time to get that consistent period. And a few days of variation is normal. So one month it's 26 days, the next month it's 28, and the next one it's 30, then it goes back to 27 days. That's normal, a few days early and late, but it should be consistent. And things that can throw off this consistency is like if you are exercising really, really heavily. So some of our friends who are training for a marathon, that is putting so much strain and stress on your body that you might miss a period that month. That is common because of the stress. So even in life, like if you have a really heavy work week or school week and you are stressed, that's going to throw off your body and your hormones because your cortisol is so high that your cycle might be a little bit off. And so there are certain deficiencies in nutrients or minerals that if you are deficient in, that is going to spike some of these symptoms. So if you have really, really heavy bleeding where you are soaking through a pad or tampon in 1 to 2 hours, again, red alert, not normal, that is and could continue to cause an iron deficiency. So maybe add in some more red meat or take an iron supplement a few times a week. Go talk to a doctor. Again, you can also have like we talked about really, really severe pain if you are nauseous, bent over, have to stay in bed for like those first couple days of your period. You're even throwing up. Some people experience that. You are deficient in magnesium and calcium. So there are certain foods that you can take or supplements to boost that deficiency. And then a big one are omegas. And there are two different types of omegas we could get into a whole episode about. There's omega 3s and omega 6s. Omega 3s are great. This comes from fish and that's why you take a lot of fish oil or some fruits and vegetables. Omega 6s are horrific and they are in all of our processed foods and the seed oils that we are consuming. That is a big red alert that everyone talks about. So if you have this imbalance omegas, you have really high omega 6s and really low omega 3s, that is going to increase the inflammation in your body to cause really strong cramping, as well as low levels of vitamin D is going to worsen your PMS symptoms and a lot of period pain.
Yeah, you can kind of track the different types of blood that you're experiencing, and that can signal different things to you of, oh, I might also be deficient in this, or this might be a problem with my period. So for example, brown discharge, that's usually just your old blood leaving the uterus. This can be a super normal thing at the beginning or the end of your period. However, if you only got brown discharge when you were supposed to get your period, that can be a sign of really low progesterone, which was one of the issues I had. And so I was taking a supplement for that for a long time. You can have light or spotting bleeding, which again, then the small amounts of bleeding between your periods is called spotting. So that can be caused just by a hormonal shift. You could have low progesterone, and that could be caused for that. Again, if you don't get your period and you only get spotting. It can also occur with stress or weight changes, stopping and starting birth control. I know a lot of period people experience just spotting for that. but it's usually not super serious if it's infrequent. If it's persistent, like we said, and you're not getting that period and you're only getting spotting, then there is a level that is off that is causing your body to not fully produce the cycle. If you have bright red bleeding, then that means that it's the fresh, active blood. It's common during the main days of your period, and that is a great thing. That is what we look for at the beginning of a period. Dark red or brownish blood, that's the older blood, it's simply just taken longer to leave the uterus, and it's often seen at the end of your period. That is also still good. But if you're just seeing that brown discharge, again, that might be more of a red flag to look at.
There's a lot of holistic or natural approaches that both Cicely and I have taken in the last probably 2 years, like when we started our health journey, to really focus. And my main issue was getting my period back. And I tried so hard for 4 years. That was what I focused on, specifically 2 years, really hard. Like everything I was doing in my daily life, what I was eating for breakfast, what I drank the minute I woke up, how I was sleeping, what I was exercising, was all in focus to just get my period back. And a huge part of that was nutrition. The first thing my doctor said was, you are not eating enough protein. Boom. This thing I started focusing on, at least 30 grams of protein every single meal, as well as balancing your blood sugar. So a lot of girls, and myself included in this with PCOS, have trouble balancing our blood sugar. We are on that verge of, it's pre-diabetic. You're on that verge. And so eating balanced meals, focusing on protein and healthy fats, decreasing the carbs that you're eating, especially those starchy carbs, and never eating sugar by itself. So I am not allowed to have what my doctor calls a naked fruit. I am never allowed to eat just an apple, just a banana, just a piece of pineapple. I have to pair it with the protein. So that means apples and almond butter, bananas and peanut butter, or like if I'm eating a pineapple, I'll throw in a handful of almonds. That immediately helps balance my blood sugar and stabilize it out, which causes a lot of challenge for the body if it's trying to focus on that, to then focus on getting your period back. And we talked about another big thing with nutrition are those deficiencies: iron, vitamin D, B vitamins that can bring your cycle back once you get those up, and stress. I know Cicely does a much better job of this than I do, but managing your stress and bringing your cortisol down is another huge thing.
Yeah, as someone who is just chronically stressed, and I've literally been diagnosed with chronic stress, this was one of the big ones for me with getting my period back and looking into it. High cortisol is a stress hormone, and so it can interfere with ovulation, it can delay, it can even cause you to skip your periods. Your body, when you're chronically stressed, will live in this fight or flight mode, and it keeps your body so focused on your nervous system that you're not able to dedicate time to your hormones. You're essentially telling your bodies, like, we're under stress, so reproduction is just not a priority for our bodies right now. This activates what's called the HPA axis, so the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which can then interfere with the hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis, the HPO axis, and that is the system that directly controls our ovulation and menstrual cycles. They then release signals to release LH and FSH. So if you've ever done a hormone test, you're most likely being tested for those two things first, because those then stimulate your ovaries. And high cortisol can suppress some of those signals, which means that your LH and your FSH levels drop. That can lead to your delayed ovulation or your skipped cycles. So I know I had really low levels of LH when I first got my hormone test done.
Yeah, I love a hormone panel. And for
Yeah.
any girl between the ages of like, once your period evens out, so like 17 to probably 25, I would highly suggest, if you are experiencing any of these symptoms, go get a hormone panel done. I did a Dutch test, and
Yep.
it explains in a very beautiful graph form. I had my natural holistic doctor explain it to me, what these signals look like when your adrenals are signaling to your pituitary gland to release some of those things during different times of the cycle. And then you can hone in and focus on those certain things, like Cicely getting that low progesterone up. Mine, I had to get all of them back in whack, but it was like all back out of whack, I guess. But highly recommend like a Dutch test or any hormonal panel.
Yeah. You also likely, if you're under high stress, have that progesterone imbalance. So our cortisol shares precursors with progesterone, which when our cortisol production ramps up because of stress, the body's then prioritizing that over making progesterone, which can lead to those low levels. And we've talked about that results in shorter luteal phases, irregular bleeding, spotting. It also has effects on estrogen, which is another main hormone that girls need, especially for your menstrual cycles. And chronic stress affects this because it either leads to increasing or decreasing your estrogen levels. So that can then contribute to higher PMS, irregular cycles, heavy and lighter periods. Stress in general, we've talked about how bad it is, right? It affects your sleep, it affects nutrition, it affects with your exercise patterns. And it can even promote your insulin resistance, which we've talked about in other episodes, and inflammation. These all can lead to cycle irregularities. So things like practicing yoga, meditation, breath work, journaling all help lower stress levels. So I'd really encourage you, we'll talk a little bit more about exercise, but if you're doing things that you know you're putting your body in more stress, even if it's maybe a better stress like exercise, to add in one of those other things to really help keep those levels balanced.
A few other things that I did when really trying to focus in on getting a regular period was focusing on my sleep and my circadian rhythm so that I was getting those 7 to 9 hours every single night. And I was waking up and going to sleep around the same time every night. So my body could understand and kind of get into that cycle. I also really, really focused on exercise. I mean, I pretty much immediately dropped all of my super high intense workouts. So the spin classes, the Orange Theory that I was doing like multiple times a week, I immediately stopped. I focused on strength training, lifting weights, doing yoga, doing Pilates, going on walks. And then as I got my cycle back, I focused different types of those exercises during the different weeks when I was in the different phases of my cycle. Because over exercise that I was doing through these spin and Orange Theory classes really can suppress ovulation and they cause those missed periods. Something that I also paired along with these lifestyle changes were herbal and functional like supplement supports. So I took something, and I still do, called Vitex. It's known as Chase Tree. My doctor recommended it. It's used to support progesterone production and regulate my cycle. So I love a Vitex. You can find it at Sprouts. It's known as Vitex or Chase Tree. I add maca, MACA root powder into a lot of my smoothies. That boosts a hormone balance as well as energy. It's just overall good for you. Ginger and cinnamon. I love a ginger juice in the morning. I will also sprinkle cinnamon into my smoothies or coffee because it is scientifically proven to reduce heavy bleeding if that is an issue you have and improve the regularity of your cycle. As always, Cicely and I are not doctors. We have not studied medicine. So always, if you want to consult a healthcare provider before starting any herbal supplement, I think it's good for your own knowledge just to have that background on why I'm taking it. What is it specifically going to do to my body? What's it going to help?
Another thing that was really important to me fixing my hormones and getting those levels back on track was I was very underweight. And a lot of the issue was because of stuff with my stomach and not being able to gain weight and not retaining a lot of things I was eating. And so being significantly underweight or overweight can directly affect your ovulation. Even 5 to 10% changes in your weight can impact your regularity of your cycle. So people underestimate not weighing enough. Like we always talk about in America being overweight and weighing too much. But there is a lot of people that also have a lower BMI. And so if you are under that level of the threshold that you're supposed to be at for your BMI, then it is very possible that you could be missing your cycle because you're not at a healthier weight.
Something we love talking about is reducing toxins and endocrine disruptors in your home and in your life. We specifically talked about it in episode 11, and it has changed the way that I think about everything. I mean, I walk into someone's car and I'm like,
100%.
oh my God, you have a what's it called? Scent, like a scent in your
Yes.
car. One of
Oh
the
my gosh.
things.
I literally yesterday the like place I was working from, they kept blowing out like and like you know how they do in like nice apartments and stuff? They were
Yes.
blowing out like the fragrances and I was literally like would start to feel nauseous and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I
I'm
can't
like,
do
you are
this."
disrupting my hormones. Please walk
Yes.
away. My
Yes.
boyfriend will wear cologne. I'm like, that's you're disrupting my hormones 6 feet away. Please excuse me. And so hormone just really a main thing that you can work on if you are wanting to change your life to be more healthy is to reduce those toxins. So, chemicals that are found in your plastic, in your personal care products, shampoos, conditioner, face washes, fragrances, the term
Yeah.
fragrances or perfume, your household cleaners, every Clorox wipe, your dishwasher detergent, your laundry detergent, and you can go down a
Literally everything.
spiral. It's insane. But once you start to find the research about it, you just slowly change. When you
Yeah.
need a new detergent, when you need a new cleaning product, try a new one. We love Branch Basics. That's a really
Hmm.
good one that I have turned to. You can make your own. You see all the crunchy moms on Instagram, but there are so many awesome ones that you can buy. And so, you know, don't get crazy overwhelmed, but highly recommend that. And I mean, we talk on and on about the negative effects of birth control and how it's not really regulating your period, honey. It is giving you a fake period.
Yeah. So it really, we've talked about this a million times, but the whole band aid on a symptom, right? It's putting the band aid on the symptom. It is not at all targeting or fixing that root cause. So birth control does not regulate your period. Instead, it just suppresses ovulation. This can create basically, it does create a withdrawal bleed. So you're not getting that true menstrual cycle, as Shayna explained at the beginning. And this will most likely mask underlying issues because you most likely went in wanting to figure out, why do I feel so terrible when I get my period? Why is my period not regular? Why is it too heavy? Whatever issue you went in with at the beginning, it's just going to mask that underlying issue. So if the issue is actually PCOS, if it's actually a thyroid problem, being underweight, endometriosis, any of those things, you're no longer addressing that. You're almost just pushing it off because you're not going to take birth control forever.
And taking birth control really, really depletes a lot of the nutrients in your body when you are on it for a long term. So they did a study with girls who are on birth control, and it was a huge percentage. Like, I think over 90% had lower levels of all of the B vitamins. Folate is one of them, magnesium, zinc, C, vitamin C, and E, which is why one of the reasons for these lower nutrient deficiencies when girls are coming off of birth control, why they struggle with things like insane acne that'll flare up immediately or hair loss, mood changes, all things that I experienced and was
Yeah.
like, what the hell is happening with my body? It's because I was on birth control for so long that I was completely deficient in all of these things, but it's masking your symptoms so you don't know them. And all of these nutrients are really critical for energy, mood, hormone production. There's also a lot of side effects that come with birth control that they don't talk about. One of the biggest ones is blood clots. So if you're getting on birth control, you need to be really aware of that word because they can be super scary. You can have nausea, bloating, breast tenderness, spotting, period wise, weight fluctuations, emotional like crazy. A lot of girls go into depression, have increased levels of anxiety, mood swings, and a lot lower libido. Um, Specifically on the blood clots, it's a combination of the estrogen and progestin, which will slightly increase your risk. It says slightly. That's from their website. It's a lot higher than slightly. I'd be aware of it, as well as strokes and high blood pressure. A big thing that I experienced was gut. My gut was ripped to shreds. I mean, I couldn't eat anything. I mean, no matter how healthy I thought I was eating, my body was not digesting it properly, was not absorbing the nutrients from the good food that I was eating. So whether it was the most processed like Chick-fil-A or it was a green smoothie, my body couldn't process it at all. I was so bloated. I was so overweight. It was awful.
We've talked a million times just about how much of our body the gut controls and how it impacts directly our mental health. The episode that we just did before this on talking about anxiety and how that is completely tied with the gut microbiome and your immunity and getting sick even in the winters and summer, whatever. Like, It is all tied in there. And so taking a pill just in general, but especially birth control, can directly destroy the gut. And that then impacts multiple other parts of your body and your life as well. You also, I've seen actually, especially a lot of influencers that I follow dealing with this, but when you can come off birth control, your fertility usually returns, but some women can experience what's called the post pill am actually don't know how to pronounce that word. Amarina.
Amenorrhea.
Yep, that.
Amenorrhea.
Hence why we are not doctors. But you basically won't get your period for months after coming off the pill. And this can make it really hard to track your cycle health and harder to get pregnant for that reason because you can't track when you're actually ovulating. A lot of women have struggled to just simply get pregnant while coming off the pill because they think that they can stop it and get pregnant within like a year of coming off it. And it might take a lot longer than that. Like Shayna was even saying it took her just to get her cycle a long time. And so let alone like to be able to even try to get pregnant, that would take even longer than that.
Yeah, it's huge. And I know in this episode, we threw a lot of info at you, like just boom, threw it out there. And so if you ever have any questions, DM us on Instagram. We are happy to talk one on one, answer some of the questions, lead you, guide you towards like some resources that we found really helpful because it's a lot of information that no one ever teaches you, but it's really good to know. And there's a lot of changes that you can make and you feel 100 times better.
Yeah, 100%. And we've both seen that firsthand. So thank you guys so much for listening. And we'll talk to you again in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye.